chocolate, that's a good thing for you. A little sleep. Got in last night, went to bed at 3 o'clock, woke up at 6:13 this morning to the guy from the front desk in my room at the foot of my bed.
Oh, jeez.
Little freaky wake up, let me tell you.
Somebody you're not familiar with?
Yeah.
Yeah, Mr. Bates.
Wasn't even the guy that checked me in.
And when you wake up in a weird place, you always think it for the first few seconds, I'm at home.
Yeah.
And then you realize you're not
You
at
here
home.
for tag manager?
Yeah.
All right, you're in the right place. I've had one person walk out on that question. So, yeah, that was my freaky morning.
Why was he there?
Apparently I got noise complaints on my alarm.
So what device was...
the Nexus 6 has very good speakers that will
Yeah.
wake up the people in the room next to you if they've slept longer than you. So it might suck battery life sometimes, but it'll wake you up most of the time. Let's see. Are you here for tag manager?
Indeed.
Excellent.
You should have said, fix the wall. It's not my fault.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have a talk with them sometime. I've already tweeted the DoubleTree. I'm like, I don't know if it's all right that you guys are coming in my room. All right. I don't even know how to full screen this anymore.
Yes,
Well, you're gonna deal with all of my what looks like partially Internet Explorer bookmarks.
we don't know what F keys are.
F11?
Yeah.
12?
I tried both of those,
Huh.
and since they're also page up, page down. Wait, do I have to function key?
Yeah, you got
Yeah.
Yay!
Why do they make this place?
All F4.
Stupid Microsoft.
Yeah.
Yeah, I heard it fixes it if you had Alt F4.
I think Control Alt Delete does the same. So, welcome to my Tag Manager talk. What do you guys develop for? I guess. Are you app developers or web?
In the middle.
Web.
Web.
Are we mostly web? All right, then I'll just go for the web shit and skip out on most of the Android and iOS stuff to save you time. All right, so what is Tag Manager? This is Google's horrible description of what Tag Manager is, because I don't agree with this. It doesn't make it easy for marketers because they still need a developer. So I never came up with a good description of what it was to a better one than what they had. So Tag Manager is a free tool that makes it easy for marketers to add and update website tags, including conversion tracking, site analytics, remarketing, and more, with just a few clicks and without needing to edit your website code. It also works for Android and iOS, and there's some really cool stuff you can do with that. I'm actually going to touch on that a little bit. You can dynamically update strings actually on Android and iOS, so you can like update the UI or like settings on a game, which is super awesome. You can come in person looking in the window, but you're not anymore. All right. So I know a little bit about that side of it. I can't say I'm necessarily proficient in it, but I can try and answer your questions on that part. So why the hell should you care? Easy implementation. It's just as easy as putting analytics on there, but you can do a whole hell of a lot more with it. As I said before, you can dynamically configure mobile apps. It has version control, so when your boss goes in and starts screwing with stuff, if you know what version you were on that worked correctly, you can just go back, click, and say publish, and it's fixed. Debugging, you can debug with it. I saw your reviews. So, let's go over the basics. I don't know what my next slide is. Awesome. So it does know what tag is. All right. Don't remember. I don't have my speaker notes apparently popping up, so you're gonna have to deal with this. A tag is like a snippet of code that sends information to a third party. So there's a whole bunch of different tags on Tag Manager by default that you can choose, like analytics, AdWords, double click, ClickTails one I've used before. I don't know if I've used any of the other ones really before. I've used their custom HTML tag before to actually have it grab information from like Weather Underground using their APIs. Or that might have been, I'm pretty sure that was the custom HTML tag I used on that. And I think I might have that set up to do a Konami code on the website. Just because, you know, you gotta have some fun. So we're gonna screw with my company's website and let them know. So the basic triggers, triggers are what obviously trigger the tags. You can have it trigger based on either page you click, something on a forum, history change, so like on Ajax sites, if the history is changing, that changes. There's custom events that you can push in the data layer, which is part of Tag Manager, which I use that in the Konami code part to trigger an event in analytics to know that someone actually entered the Konami code on the website.
Pardon, Dan, that somebody entered what?
The Konami code. It's a video game. So.
Oh.
It's alright, Mark.
I'll ask my son.
You know, your son might be too young
Oh.
to understand the Konami code.
Konami's what, like 85?
Yeah, you really had to get into Contra to understand
Yeah.
what it
Oh,
was.
Yeah. So it's essentially a video game cheat that's fairly proficient. That
It was
was
in most of the Konami games.
yeah, which I believe was the code used for testers so that they could just blow through it and test everything. So I put that in there. You can even have it trigger on JavaScript errors so that you can actually report back error messages to like analytics, so that you can see like what line things are trigger, you know, what URL, what line in the code, and what error you're getting, so that you can look through the events and say, oh, something's messing up, I should probably fix that. And there's a timer, so like if you want to deal with like the bounce rate and it's like a blog where someone's reading it, you can just set a timer to keep the session alive. And then there's variables, which make Tag Manager awesome. So the clicks and form ones are actually, move them out of the way, are pretty much the same thing, just one's on forms and the other is when you click. You can get like the element from it, you can get what class where you click, the ID of like the link, the target, the URL, and even the text within it. So as I'll show later, if you post a whole bunch of different like PDFs, for example, on your site, and you're sick of putting events for every PDF you post up, you can have it automatically essentially tag them and grab what the file name was and what the text was and all that. Page URL, postname path, and the refer. I don't know if I need to explain any of those. If you need help with those, I can explain it. All right. Events. So actually, the ones that are checked are the ones that are on by default, by the way. And Tag Manager is made up of containers, which is where all your tags, your triggers, which are also known as rules in the last version. Or if you're still doing the Android and iOS side, it's rules. And variables were known as macros on the older version. So those are all put into a container. You can get the container ID in the container version. So like you could set up a custom dimension so that you know what container is firing all those. So that when your boss does screw it up, you know which one to go back to. And I don't know a really good use for the random number, but you can use the random number generator if you want. As I was saying with the error messages and all that, there's, when you have fire on the JavaScript error, you can have it put like the error message as the event or the category or the label or action or whatever. And same with the others. When you have that JavaScript error pop up. Debug mode is literally if debug mode is on or off on Tag Manager. And all of the history stuff is for the like Ajax single page apps. So that when you're switching between pages, it can fire those off. I have not played with those ones, so I'm not going to try and explain this too much. And you can create your own variables as well, which is based on a whole bunch of other stuff. One you will most definitely be using is probably the constant, which whenever I start up a new container, and I'm using Google Analytics, I put the UA tracking number as a constant. I'll show that as well in a bit here. Trying to think of ones that I use frequently. That's really the one I use the most, probably. Yeah. And actually, the lookup table is kind of neat too, because if you're in debug mode, you probably don't want all of those hits going back to like your analytics saying that you were on the site. If you actually set up two different profiles in analytics, you can actually have it say if it's in debug mode, send it to this one as opposed to sending it to the main. You could set up the filters as well, but
So you can segment out your.
you can segment out like whether you're debugging or So without setting up the filters in analytics.
Oh, right. Oh, I got you.
So, yeah, and again, I don't want to be one of those boring talks where it's me just talking at you. So, if you have questions, fire them at me.
I have a question.
All right.
Maybe it's because I didn't get enough sleep either last night, but I still don't understand the context here. Could you maybe show an example so I know what context to put all these variables in?
That is coming up in a second here, sir.
Oh, very good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And actually, one reason I give this talk is because every Googler I've asked about Tag Manager does not have an answer other than, what's Tag Manager? Which has kind of like put me on this like, all right, this is your own product, and none of your employees seem to know what it is. So, all right, we're gonna pop open Tag Manager. Ah, damn it. That's gonna. Sorry about that.
While you're doing that, where did you find that page with the list of all the available tags you could install from like other partners and companies and stuff?
That's actually just when you go to create a new tag.
Okay, I'm on that page now, and I want to see what that was.
So, are you using? Okay, so there's two versions of Tag Manager right now. There's version 1 and version 2.
For the next week.
What?
Aren't they switching to the second version on April 1st?
Maybe.
I think so.
I didn't know the exact date when they were doing it.
How do I get to V2 then?
Tagmanager.google.com.
Tag Manager.
It looks a lot cleaner and a lot
I
nicer.
guess I could lose my laptop.
It looks probably a lot better on your laptop.
Yeah.
I'm glad there's someone else that knows that Tag Manager in here, and I hope I don't bore you back there then.
No, I don't know it that well. It's-
All right, sweet. Why am I getting nothing showing up on the screen? Awesome. This is just how I want it to come.
Don't push buttons and it might work, and if it does.
I didn't. There we go. Got it.
Yes.
See, it was scared.
You just had to threaten it.
Yeah. I love when that happens.
Good job.
That is the second time that's happened to me in like 2 weeks. Where someone has threatened it. Where is it?
Oh, you actually have to create an account on the new UI, otherwise you have a legacy account.
Yeah, if you're saying next week, maybe they're switching all, do you know if they're switching the ones over?
It said April 1st, the
Okay.
last time I looked, but I'll check.
I just hadn't looked when all of it was switching over.
It's a lot prettier.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I'm gonna pull up my company's account, or the company I work for's account. All right, ask your question again, Martin.
Okay, so could you show an example of tag manager or this in actual use and what it looks like, what it does?
Okay, so this is Tag Manager.
Okay.
This is, so within it you have containers and you create tags and triggers and variables as I want within those containers. And it will.
And what does it look like on the website and what does it do?
On the
In
website-
one particular, could we see a particular example?
So on the website you're not going to see any difference.
Okay. But there's a snippet of JavaScript code?
Yeah, there's, so the whole small bit of code you put in, you go over to admin whenever you get an account set up, or if you have one set up already. Why did I not find it? Install Tag Manager. It's a really, a little bit convoluted code, but essentially you're sticking an iframe on your site. Oh, Lloyd decided to show up, finally.
I couldn't find her, I've been looking everywhere.
Except for you walked past the room earlier. I got people's. So you put that on the site, like here we'll pull up. And this goes up. Oh, that's not right. So, put it right after the body tag, which is way too much crap on this page, but, so you just stick that in there. It works a lot like analytics, but there's a lot more that you can do with it. I'll show you guys how to set up analytics, how to do some auto event tracking, how to push custom events to the data layer, which actually, there's this whole data layer thing, which if you go to, going totally out of order, but this will be fun. You can actually look at the data layer in the console, which,
Cool. Did you do that, or does it auto just throw everything in console.log?
if you just, there's a lot better ways of debugging, but this is how I used to debug it.
But does it automatically just throw everything to console.log?
I believe so.
Okay,
I just
cool.
type in data layer and it pulls it right up.
Awesome.
So what I used to do on the old one was dig through, I'm trying to remember what I dug through to set up some certain, well, anyways, there's the really old way that you could debug and go through this. I'm going to show you more relevant things. I'm
So
getting
now
a-
you put it on suchtechnical.com.
Yeah.
And what does that give?
So with Tag Manager, I actually have our Tag Manager firing a whole ton of tags at different times. So I've actually got it so I'm able to track when someone watches a YouTube video and how far into it they get, even though it's an iframe within the site. So using the JavaScript API that YouTube has. Yeah. I don't know if it's the player one or what else. But I'm sure it's probably a player API. But it's so, but I've got that going. I didn't even think that was possible until I found that on the web, on using Tag Manager for that. Every time there's an outbound link that's clicked, I have it doing an auto event on that, which I'll explain auto events in a second here, so that I don't have to set up an event saying someone's going somewhere else. Essentially, because with analytics before, you'd have to do this whole event string on like on a link click, essentially. Where with Tag Manager, you can go in and set up a trigger new for a click, and if it's a link click, I never really look at this stuff underneath it. I typically just continue there, and then make it like when the element URL down here. I'll pull up one that's actually already created for elements. Since I don't remember, oh, the page URL. Oh yeah, the click URL, okay. Does not contain, it's unchemical.com. It actually fires a tag over here. So it'll fire another Google Analytics event that uses, when it's in these brackets, that's the variables. So it's using the click URL as the events are made up of categories, actions, and there's even label. But so let's trying to think of. I think that's a URL. Okay, that should be. Oh no, okay. So if I click here, look at the events, the outbound link to interpack.com that fired from that tag.
Cool.
With setting up just that trigger and that tag, which really saves a lot of time and effort if you're going through creating a page. You don't have to go through the process of making sure that you've tagged every outbound link with another event for each outbound link, which is a pain in the ass, and I never did before. So, I've also got it set up so that when I download a PDF, which I don't know where there's, oh, no, I'm not going to fill out a form because my lead generation person will kill me. So I'm not going to download a form, but the same thing happens when the PDF is downloaded. It'll fire off an event and say, hey, this PDF is downloaded, which, if I go here, yeah, so the YouTube one, for example, fires a whole bunch of different events. I'll show that over here. So I've got it set up so that the label is actually what the video is. along with its really annoying string. I need to clean that up. But there's a play action, a pause action, whether you got 25% through it, 50%, 75%, or all the way through it. Which not a lot of people get all the way through the videos, apparently.
I mean, like, just getting that information set up was real pain for a lot of companies.
Yeah. Yeah, and being able to get that in there. So, I want to say, I think there's a variable, I'm trying to remember what all I know I found it online, so the instructions on there will probably be a lot better. Because I'm just going off memory here right now. But yeah, so it checks if YouTube is present, and it actually puts on, no, it's not on this one. But first it checks if YouTube is present. And then there's another, I believe, okay, yeah. It's custom JavaScript that's being created as a variable. When it detects YouTube's present, it actually checks to see, I don't know which one it is because my labeling was horrible apparently. Maybe custom event? No, that is absolutely nothing. So I believe it's a tag, but I'm going to shut up on that part. And it actually enables the JavaScript API at that point. If you're looking for this, just do a search for YouTube Tag Manager. I'm sorry I'm sucking at giving directions on this, but at least you now know it exists. I think I got it from like cardinalpath.com. And there's some other guy that claims he improved it. I didn't look at it. But it enables the JavaScript API and another tag, and then that triggers it to then start a whole push of different things. Oh, actually, if I looked, yeah, so I have a custom HTML tag that is adding the JavaScript to add on the JavaScript API. So, Jeff, don't talk during people's talks. It's okay. I'm just giving shit. Gone longer than I thought it would. That's awesome. But hold on. I have more talking points. Yeah, so one of the things I was tracking at one point, I don't even have it set up, but was really cool and what kind of really turned me on to Tag Manager was tying into, found a resource that told me how to tie into the Weather Underground's API. So I was able to get the weather of the people who made a purchase on the site. And my whole goal with that at one point was like, I'm gonna hyper seasonalize these purchases and then use that to like auto bid on AdWords. Like when it's this temperature in this region, let's start bidding high because they're gonna purchase. And I probably wouldn't have found any real information on that with what I was doing, but that's a really cool thing.
Did they make money on that?
I actually got let go before I really got to do that, unfortunately.
Oh, okay.
I got it implemented, but I didn't tell them I implemented this. I was just gonna show up one day with a year's worth of data. Being like, see, this is true. And make them make a data-driven decision, but because they didn't like listening to me at that company anyways. So
Can you get like form data? Is it something that you've done? We go the other way.
So there is the variables